Yo, it's that time of week again where we induct all of you fine people into the Stochastic Hall of Fame and give away a bunch of free memberships to Stochastic Plus Platinum. All you need to do to get up here, to have us brag for you, and to get your free month is download the Stokastic profile picture at stokastic.com/avatar. We got a sexy new avatar up there now too, so make sure to change yours if you haven't yet. And then tweet your wins at Stokastic HOF on Twitter and win a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum when your lineup finishes top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Let's get into it. First up, monster win by Rich Green here. $50,000 on that insanely odd 3-game 10 p.m. tip-off slate for the NBA. Using the tools and projections at Stochastic, we got the takedown as well as 3 other members finishing in the top 10. You love to see it. You also love to see D. Sella with a $50K finish, checking off winning a large field tournament for the first time. Day one of owning the Stochastic Platinum worked out well, to say the least. Big shout out to Adam Scher, Greg Ehrenberg, Josh Ingeman, and all the others for the daily shows as well. A boatload of knowledge to be had, says D. Sella. And then our boy low budget DFS. What are the odds of having 20 entries with 47,000 field and tying yourself for first place with 2 different lineups? Yeah, I don't know. What I do know is that's awesome. Chop it first with yourself. I noticed too, it's a 2v2 where 2 players in completely different ways totaled 93 fantasy points. So congratulations, man. What a way to take that down. And then EJ, a very simple at Stochastic Hall of Fame $2,000 win. Not sure if that username is G1Z-Man or a cute way of saying Jizz-Man, but either way, nice win, G1Z-Man. Next up, Sotex. Needless to say, had myself a really good night and so close to first, but I'll take it. Thanks to everyone at Stochastic. Good stuff, Sotex, with a $1,000 win there. Remember, all you got to do to get inducted, all you got to do to get your free month, use the avatar at stokastic.com/avatar. Use it anywhere you play and tweet your wins at Stochastic Hall of Fame.
Greg Ehrenberg from Odd Chopper here to break down a Monday Night Football game between the Cardinals and the 49ers. As you guys come in, do me a big favor, like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also, leave a comment below to let me know what you think about my bets, or if there's any other bets that you're placing, let me know about those below in the comment section. I do always like to see what it is that you guys have action on. Also, if you want more action, not just for myself, but all the other guys on the YouTube channel, we've got a Discord channel that you can get 1 week free access to, and I actually do think it's really valuable. So I think if you guys just check it out for free for 1 week, there's a good chance you're going to stick around. It's going to help you make some money, because there's stuff that I like to bet in terms of breaking news, mostly in basketball, but sometimes in football as well, that end up being really good value bets that I could alert people to bet them immediately in Discord and can't do it the same way on YouTube. So over the weekend, for instance, we had a weird situation with the Buffalo Bills game where it was supposed to be 6 feet of snow. So the total starts dropping like crazy for that game. And then we get word that the game is being moved to Detroit. It's going to be played in a dome. So immediately the first thing I'm doing is telling everybody to go bet the over on that game, which is what I did. I bet the over 43.5 points, ended up cashing nicely for me. But the big thing in those situations is you only have a very limited time frame to get those bets in. So that's where Discord comes in handy, where I could let everybody know, like, hey, here's the situation. And then also just knowing the different sports books and how they operate, I knew that that was a bet that we had to place at DK Sportsbook, because they were going to let the over stand, whereas some other books, FanDuel, BetMGM, they void bet tickets on those kind of situations. So just stuff where I could really update you guys on how to get the best value possible on any sort of short notice bets or anything like that for breaking news. The Discord channel is where it's at. And once again, 1 week free access. Click on the link below to join. But let's talk about Monday Night Football. We got some props to break down. I've got an offer for you guys also. You can make $200 for free. So to start it off here, I have to say I like the 49ers.
updated here.
Yeah.
Right?
Got the props.
I think so.
Projections,
right?
I should say. Yeah.
Oh, look at this. I just didn't know if everything's updated with Kyler Murray, but it is. So we have.
Yeah.
We don't have Colt though, right?
No. Or wait, who's the backup? Is it McCoy or Keenum?
No, it's McCoy, but we don't have him.
Calls Case Keenum somewhere.
He's Buffalo. Keenum's Buffalo, right?
Yeah, he's Buffalo.
Yeah. And I only knew that because the possibility of Josh Allen not playing, and it was like this Case Keenum revenge game. That
I mean, Cole McCoy and Case Keenum, if you're going to mix up two players in the NFL, I mean, that's it. They're both career backups. Both start with C. They're both like undersized.
Yep. I agree.
Same fucking person. Cole McCoy. That's all right. Well, I'll get it right one time today. It'll be for this show. So
it's fine. As long as you get it right once, I guess. Technically. I don't know. Hey, do we have any overs? Oh, 2 overs. Nice. Boy, what a game here. What a fucking disaster. All right. Well, welcome in. It's the Monday Night Football edition of the No House Advantage Strategy Show. Geoff is in the house. I'm Eytan. Mike is producing, and you're out there hanging with us, and we appreciate it big time. So not only you right away, but anybody you see, any stragglers coming in, remind them, hit the thumbs up, subscribe they can to the Stokastic and like the empire we have here under all the channels on YouTube. And we'll remind you about matching, $50 with the Stokastic code and all. We talked about this, you and I, my friend, on Thursday. No, was it Friday show? That's right. Friday show. You're with Pete on Thursday, just about the weather and how Mike was dealing with the snow and all the nonsense. And you're dealing with snow in a different capacity. And I'm dealing with like a little bit below that, the bite and the nasty cold. What is the weather like in Mexico? It's 71 degrees tonight. Super high altitude. We know that. 71 degrees with a little light rain right now. So I think all of us wouldn't mind a nice little trip down to Mexico City for this game tonight, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, definitely going to be, like it's not a Buffalo situation, at least where, like the game's going to get canceled or something. So, yeah, if anything, I mean, yeah, you mentioned, I forgot about the altitude too. I mean, the altitude comes into play. I think definitely going to be more so in Arizona. I mean, look, one thing San Francisco is not short on is skill players right now. They got Eli Mitchell to take some heat off McCaffrey. They got Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, all healthy. This team's going to be a nightmare to defend, man, especially in a situation like this, I think, where, the other defense is going to start getting gas late in the game. I don't know. I mean, we'll just go bet the team total on the over on the San Francisco 49ers. And like that's all you need to do tonight, I think, in my opinion. We're going to talk about these props too. Because look, there's $10K for grabs up on No House Advantage tonight. It's a $10K for first, $20K guaranteed contest, man. Like we'll grab a share of that too. But otherwise you're betting, just do that. And then
I love it. Yeah, I think you're right, man. I think the altitude is definitely going to play a role here. One thing that might be interesting is looking at the first half. And again, we're going to get into these, but they correlate. Everything correlates. So if you heard Geoff or I talk about a first half play, that's going to correlate with who's like, you can't win a first half unless somebody's catching a football, unless somebody's running right for some yards, unless a guy's not throwing an interception. But I think the altitude, this is a little bit of an angle. It's a little angle. It's a half angle here, right? Not a full angle. But I think you've already seen one team play in Denver this year, and that's San Francisco. So Arizona has yet to play in any, and look, I'm not comparing the altitudes between Denver and Mexico City because Mexico City is higher, but it's the closest thing out there. And if anybody's ever traveled to that level of altitude, you can feel it. These guys have at least felt something like that. And I wonder if that's enough to come out and give them a little bit of an edge. And you mentioned the skill guys like this. To me, I'm with you. Bet the overs on the total for the Niners. This seems like a lot of get this done in the first half. Like get Debo work in the first half, get George Kittle work in the first half, get a guy like Brandon Ayuk deep downfield in the first half, Geoff.
Yeah, absolutely. I really think this is going to be This is going to be the game where I think like people are starting to realize that San Francisco is a really deep, solid team, but this is the game where I feel like people can be like, oh, this is like a potential juggernaut. And it's not so much that, like if they do win this game by a lot and they just beat up on Arizona, that it's going to mean that like they're the best team or something all of a sudden, but it's going to catch people's attention. So I'm kind of looking for this game to play out like that. Like you said, where it just kind of starts pretty early, San Francisco, maybe the game stays close. And then maybe at the end of the second half, start of the third quarter, it just becomes kind of an avalanche. So that's, I think that's the most likely scenario in this game. I'm not sure what Arizona is going to put up here. They're just outmatched in so many different areas, even just like defending against the tight end. Like you're going to have George Kittle tonight. They suck against that. Been giving up yards to wide receivers left and right. It's a tough spot for Arizona.
Really? I mean, I'm almost, think about this. DeAndre Hopkins right away, 5.4 is what we have on our site, Stokastic, for free. Our projections are free. We have the optimal lineup as well. And that goes right into what you're saying here, which is it doesn't matter. Kyler Murray is out. Colt McCoy is in. By the way, don't play any Kyler Murray props. You're not going to get any points for that. You're not going to outsmart the field, and you're not going to have a chance to play Colt McCoy. So you're going to have to work around that. And I think this is what makes the most sense, right? Which is, hey, DeAndre Hopkins is going to suffer like everybody else around him. I will add this though, right? And I think normally this is not the case where somebody may jump and say, well, come on, Shander, of course, the easiest way to fade our projections is just to go contrary to whatever the top one is. But a lot of times that may not make sense, right? But I do think in this case, look, it wouldn't be crazy, Geoff, if you saw Colt McCoy just target DeAndre Hopkins 17, 18 times in this game, because who the hell else? I get it. Rondale Moore, you've got a couple of other guys, but let's be honest. They don't have Zach Ertz, right? Like they're down a bunch of guys. I still love DeAndre going under, but if I were to build a contrarian, it's not a bad one to float right there at the top either.
I think you've got to look at one of Moore or Hopkins for an over. In that scenario, I agree. I mean, one of these guys, maybe even both of them, honestly, just maybe getting like 10 plus targets. And that doesn't mean necessarily that both are going to go over their totals.
Right.
But there's a good chance that like with the targeting they're going to get, that one of them will, just from a pure volume play alone. So, obviously Hopkins is, it's funny because like, Moore is obviously the lesser known player, but he's put up 60 more yards now in 3 straight games. Obviously 94 yards with Colt McCoy in the last game. That's probably going to draw more people over to Colt McCoy. So I think you're probably right in saying like DeAndre Hopkins is like the more contrarian play here at over 7.5 catches. It's obviously like a very hard projection for us to take it as an under 2. And I would probably rather go with Rondale Moore as the over target, but like I would want some exposure. Like if I was putting in 10 lineups, I'd probably, take on Hopkins over as well. I'd probably sprinkle in more Rondale Moore overs, but Hopkins is still DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, like, he could easily end up with 8 catches, 90 yards or something to that effect here. And it's like, look, the San Francisco defense, I'm building them up here, but like last 3 weeks, they've allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Last 4 weeks, excuse me. So lots of catches out there, underneath stuff. It's going to be there for these wide receivers. It's just, like you got Colt McCoy throwing him the ball and maybe he just gets face planted and like this game just, they run out the clock or something. So that's risk, but I think that one of these guys will get there, perhaps even both. That's too risky a play for me to do, but I do see one of these guys, definitely probably going against our projection and hitting it over.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the angle here. And they have to correlate, right? Where it's, I know you said maybe both. That's the ultra risk play, right? I mean, you're building multiple lineups here. You're trying to attack the field and the overlay that we have tonight for NHA. I get it. But when you are building this out, it would make sense where one lineup is over for more, the other, and it would correlate going under for Hopkins and then, flip it there. We all look, AJ Green is going to pop up under. Jawan Jennings is another guy there that I'm actually kind of surprised he made the cut because of who's available for. And I wonder if it's just because, Geoff, like there are so little Cardinals players that they kind of have to round out the field with another body, and it just happens to be JJ here. But I'm a little surprised that Jauan Jennings, like I wouldn't touch anything other because receiving yards is tricky. You know, you throw one bomb to him or he breaks one down there. He can easily get 25, 28, 30, 40, but receptions is on there as an under.
Yeah, we never get deep at the running back position either, or like, you know, running or quarterback rushing yards. We rarely get those on Noah's advantage. So they usually go deeper at wide receiver or like tight end. And like you said, we're getting Jauan Jennings, we're getting Trey McBride on the other side as well for Arizona. You know, McBride played over 90% of the snaps in the last game. It's not a good matchup, but I mean, I'm pretty comfortable going under Jauan Jennings here. I know he popped up in the last game with some solid targets and, you know, like him earning targets in this offense is actually pretty interesting. You know, like Jimmy Garoppolo can literally just has his choice of players to throw to. And Jauan Jennings was able to gain 4 targets, earn 4 targets. Actually, in his last 2 starts, he's earned 4 targets. So it's kind of impressive in that situation, but you're asking him to catch 3 passes here with Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, all healthy, McCaffrey working out of the backfield. That's a lot. I feel pretty comfortable with an under here on Jennings. Actually like him as a player. I think he's actually like a good piece for the 49ers because he's a pretty big target in the red zone too. But I'm going to take the under here. I feel good about that one. And again, like, you know, I hate to go against the projections too much, but Brandon Ayuk is a dude he's just starting to look like that true number 1 receiver lately.
I agree.
You know, out targeting Debo Samuel now. And I know Debo gets his touches in other ways, but I think that like this is a really good spot for Ayuk against a weak secondary too. So I'm comfortable going on that Jennings. We're going to trust the projections there, but I'm probably going to take another like side against the projections and say like, I want to take the overs on Ayuk in this game. And it's a little dicey, you know, where to go on San Francisco. That's the biggest problem, but everyone's props on San Francisco are juiced up. Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, we're all talking like over 50 yards. And Ayuk's the guy who's just been like really earning targets and really earned the trust of Jimmy Garoppolo. So I think if I'm going to lean against the projections, it's going to be on Ayuk and go over there.
I love that, man. I think he's a great guy to target. Somebody that I was looking at on the 5 and 5 NFL video for Odd Shopper this morning and targeting, and this correlates to just receiving yards, targeting his over longest reception at 22, I think 23 and a half was the number, because the big play capability, you mentioned the trust, and it's so key because he has that trust with Jimmy G, and there's also that trust now with Kyle Shanahan and the playbook. It's not just drop back, close your eyes, and throw the ball to Debo Samuel every time, and George Kittle is back now. I mean, Ayuk is being used to really take advantage of his ability to space. And look, receiving yards, I know this becomes cliche with some guys here, but you know, 3 grabs can get you 60 yards for Ayuk, and you shouldn't be shocked at that point. And now what are we talking about? We're 2 receptions away from him going the over, and you've already cleared the receiving yards. So, yeah, man, I think Ayuk in a couple of different areas is a great, and also I would imagine, Geoff, that he's not going to be the most popular, meaning like, oh, let me slam Debo, let me slam Kittle, and then you get to Ayuk.
That's the thing. I mean, people will look at Ayuk's game card and be like, oh, he's gone over this 3 straight times, and maybe they'll lean there. But like, you've got Debo Samuel with low props too, Kittle. I think you can. It's weird. Like, it's definitely harder on the San Francisco side, and I think that there's like a pretty good argument here that maybe you just take like a couple guys over and take Jimmy Garoppolo over with it. You know, you take Ayuk over yards, maybe you take Kittle over yards.
Yeah.
These guys are all just so good after the catch. Like you said, we may like Jimmy Garoppolo's done this before. He's thrown for like 300 yards on like 28 pass attempts. You go back and look, like, it's happened. And this kind of feels like that game where we're talking about guys running out of gas late. You know, maybe he's just chucking like a little screen to Ayuk, you get 40 yards, Kittle over the middle for 30. All of a sudden, like, Jimmy G's sitting there with like 280, and you're like, what the hell just happened? So I think that there's like, if I'm building a lineup, I'm definitely building a lineup. And I think this is going to be a really contrarian move to take Jimmy G over with 2 of his receivers, because no one's taking the over on Jimmy Garoppolo, 257 and a half.
No.
And that's fine. I understand it's projected as under for a reason, but I mean, San Francisco is just, they can just do it in so many ways that you've almost got to play. I think when you're looking at how to play San Francisco, you've really got to take a couple different directions, because this offense can just get it done in so many ways. Sure, play a lineup with McCaffrey over. We've got him projected. He's our strongest over of the night. But then, like, definitely build another route where San Francisco is just getting it done with all these yards after the catch, because even McCaffrey, he may end up with 150 yards and like 100 yards receiving. It's very plausible. There's no way to tell what San Francisco, how they're going to gain their yards at this point, but they're going to get it some way. So
yeah, and I think sometimes, and I've just had this conversation before because NHA is one of the few that's legal here in Pennsylvania, which is great for us in PA and no house advantage, especially because I can just lean on all of our projections and even you on this show. Imagine that. So I'm just sucking away information for free from you here. But point being is that, this thing here overall, at least for me, I start to look at, and I've had this conversation about, well, you don't have Christian McCaffrey receiving, right? Or you don't have a certain amount of stuff. You're limited, if you will, in what you can do. I think there's a really good advantage to that, because you're honed in on something. And I think it's easier to paint a picture with these type of parameters set where you can kind of build around it. And I think guys get neglected as well, where somebody like Garoppolo could flat out be neglected outside of passing yards. People may not play touchdowns or even interceptions there. Is there anything else? I mean, you mentioned Trey McBride. I don't know how sneaky of a play there is on a guy like McBride, for example. Maybe it's AJ Green, who is not going to, Jawan Jennings we talked about, so it's kind of in that boat. Although McBride, I mean, look, I played a long shot on McBride, scored a touchdown and then 2 touchdowns tonight, simply because of what you said, which is this dude is on the field. He's just on the field. Yeah. And they're not going to remove the tight. It's not like all of a sudden the tight end's not going to run routes. Like McBride's going to run the same routes as Zach Ertz. He's just not Zach Ertz. So
yeah, exactly.
Is there anything there? Sorry.
No. I mean, I think that, like I said, my 2 favorite targets for guys to have good games for Arizona would be Moore and McBride.
And McBride, yeah.
And McBride, like, when I say good game, I mean just like he could go over his prop by like 10 yards or something. Like, I'm not expecting him to break out, but this is a player they drafted obviously on their own. They drafted for a reason, to play as a pass catcher. That was what he's going to be on the field for, right? So his main skill set, working with a guy, Colt McCoy too, I worry about DeAndre Hopkins with Colt McCoy a little bit, but he is still DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah, like, again, I like the McBride overs. I mean, like, they're not juiced up. They're attainable props, and he's just going to be on the field so much like that. I just, it's hard to, he's going to get the volume to get there. Whether it actually ends up connecting is another story. It's a tough matchup, but like, we don't have to work. We don't have to like do mental gymnastics in our head to be like, oh yeah, Trey McBride can get over there. Whereas, with like Hopkins at 7.5 and even more at 5.5 catches, it's like, well, like, he's going to have to like catch a couple balls early. They're going to have to get in a catch up like game scenario. Like, you're much better probably going overweight on the unders on Hopkins and more, but like McBride is just much more attainable and many more scenarios where he goes over. So again, this is all terms of strategy and how you're building out lineups. You can play for a slow paced game here too. That's the other thing. You can take a Christian McCaffrey over, and you can play like just unders on a lot of these wide receivers on both sides. You got the juiced up props with Hopkins. You've got, like a couple guys like maybe Debo or Kittle who would have slow games if McCaffrey dominates. So I think that's the other side of this, that, like, this game just has a lot of different outcomes in terms of props and where these players are going to end up at. But McBride is certainly players going to be on the field a ton, and his projections aren't outlandish at all. They're pretty much what we'd call pretty much norm for the industry. So
yeah, I wonder if there's anybody else. You mentioned Connor. We didn't really hit him, and I bet this earlier in the day, 49.5. I actually gave it out on our Discord because it was 2 yards lower at one book in PA than every other book that I saw it, thanks to Odd Shopper, of course. Nice little plug. That's a free site, by the way. But anyway, point being is that was at 49.5. And then I check over here. We have it at what, 55?
Yeah.
That's insane, that level of a gap right there. And Alex is still going over, correct?
I think he's like right on the what do we have him projected for? Sorry, I just had it up. Yeah.
Yeah. I moved away with it, getting ahead of my next thing, but I forgot. I didn't check.
It's basically neutral.
It is a neutral prop.
I was like you, like with the 49.5, I would either not touch that or go over on 49.5, but like the 56.5, I think you have to lean under here. You've got a 49ers defense they're really good against the run. Like, yards per carry, first in the NFL. I think they've let a few running backs go over 60 yards, but not much. No one's gone for big games against them. Connor's biggest prize here is that he's, he had a 90% snap share, but Ingram could get involved here as well. So, and again, we got the altitude, like James Conner being on the field a ton. That may not be really good for him in the long-term scenario. So Connor's an interesting one, I admit. Like, I don't know what people are going to do with this prop. It's still pretty low, even though it's like higher than the industry, but I would lean under here. I threw out the under this morning, but on this number, again, not really going against your idea there on the lower total. So I think there's a lot of scenarios where he ends up between like 60 and 50, and it's just like, does he break off that one run to get him to like 57, or does he just kind of like his longest run ends up being like 6 yards and he ends up with like 20 carries and 52 yards and goes under? Like that's kind of what you're looking at. So it's an interesting prop. It's not one that I would feel confident in either side. Right. Like I would use it lower down. That'd be my one strategy advice for Connor. Probably keep it as a lower down prop. You're gonna have to get some exposure to it because we just don't have that many props, but yeah.
You bring up the altitude having an impact with Connor, and I'm just thinking about this because again, you can't play it, but we'll just give you an example of how you can take your own reasoning and what we're talking about here on the NHA show, build your NHA lineup, and then realize that there could be a player prop or a bet out there that correlates to what you've done for NHA. So this is a long shot, and it's a plus 1,100 ticket. All right. So it's not often that something like this happens, but you just brought something up that I didn't really think of, and I don't know how many people are thinking of, which is the altitude is going to have a clear effect on the running game, specifically James Conner. There's only one other body right now on the team that I believe is dressed up as a running back, correct? And that's Keontae Ingram.
Yeah, I think Corey Clement's going to dress tonight, but Corey Clement's been dust for like
exactly.
So I'm not too worried about
South Jersey's finest, brother. Don't get me wrong, but he's dust.
There's a couple. Okay, so Ingram getting a few carries is possible. I think the other scenario that's bad for Connor is this game just gets so out of control that like they just start, they just pull some of their starters. Like they're not going to give James Conner 20 carries in a game where they're down 30 in the fourth quarter, right? So there's a couple different scenarios, but like I said, this prop isn't crazy. Even at 56.5, like Connor's going to be on the field a lot, even if Ingram picks up like 20-25% of the snaps. So
I'm just saying, right?
Yeah, no. And I agree. Like I don't have a hard stance on this one. I really don't. It's the one I struggled with this morning. I gave it out as an under for the simple reason that
what did you give it out the under at what number though?
Yeah, 56.5.
Okay.
For no house advantage for this contest specifically,
right?
For the pick 'em, for the simple reason you can correlate it easily with an over on Rondale Moore and Trey McBride, because it just means, Connor, instead of getting his usual 20 carries, he gets 12. You get more Colt McCoy dropbacks. I think those three correlate nicely when you take the under. But Connor's one where you could also take the over, maybe take an under on Hopkins, work that in. The nice thing about the Connor over under, I think it correlates great with the receivers. So.
That's true. By the way, Ingram plus 1,100 anytime touchdown.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, there's garbage time. I'm telling you, if it's like 30-3 in the fourth quarter, Keontae Ingram's going to get like 12 fourth quarter carries.
Yeah, I'm with you, man.
Yeah,
but there's all, and look, you never want to bet this, but there's just a small. Do you remember the Scarsdale? I don't know if you watch Seinfeld. So if you don't, then
yeah.
All right. Do you remember the Scarsdale surprise episode where Kramer wins the Tony as a seat filler. Like he's just there filling the seat, and then they win and he gets up there. Like James Conner might roll his ankle. He might hit his head for a play. He might need oxygen for 2 plays. And they're in the, like shit happens in the NFL. So Keontae Ingram could be a seat filler touchdown as well. You never know.
Oh, and I mean, it's not like James Conner has the greatest injury history here too, right? He's been limping he's been missing half of the practices all season. So absolutely, dude. I mean, Ingram just by default, I think the team legitimately will try and get him more involved. I don't think they want James Conner taking. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury is an idiot, so maybe he does want James Conner on the field 90% of the time, but I don't think they want to get James Conner injured again. So they got to start working in Ingram at some point. And I think there's very realistic with the altitude here. Yeah, it starts happening like right now. So,
all right, my friend, what's got a bigger, better, greater chance of happening? Is it Patrick Rodgers somehow not finishing top 10 in an event, or the Arizona Cardinals, I won't even say winning, covering a 10-point spread tonight?
Yeah, the 10, you know what? Like, I know this line's moved to 10, but like, dude, who cares? I mean, take the 49ers. I think this is a signature win for the 49ers where they really vault themselves back up to like people, you know, when we talk about, oh, it's like the Bills, and then people are going to start talking about the 49ers because this offense it's just ridiculous. And now we're going into 3rd week, 4th week. Kyle Shanahan's going to run this Arizona team just right across the field in this altitude. So I'm sorry, but no, I'll take whatever you said about Patrick Rodgers, and that's never going to happen either. But
no, I mean, the guy's he is a print machine. Trust us
for placing. Yes,
it's going to happen. It's going to happen. All right. Look,
you're like me though, and you only bet him outright, then you just pour for it.
No. I always ladder Rodgers. All right. At the Fantasy Grind at Shander Show. Thanks to Mike for producing.
I'm not.
We'll see you all out there. The NBA version of this show is right now. All right. Emac, Terry, or Gundacker, one of the 3. Perry and Gunn. That's pretty cool. Look, I bet a guy McBride to score 2 touchdowns tonight just on the strength that his name is T. McBride. All right, so you got those guys coming up next. We'll see you.